Exactly 1 year ago today, down to the minute, because your boy's cheeky like that. I sent my resignation email for my first job out of college. A decision that would change the trajectory of my life. And you might be thinking, Dennis, you're being dramatic. Well, if you know me, I'm someone who looks for meaning in even the faintest of moments. And while this decision to quit my job was on paper one to leave this unhealthy, toxic work environment, to me, it was way more than that. It was a decision to leave behind this path I'd been on, that I'd pursued relentlessly, that I thought would be my future. I left it behind entirely in that one email. Because when I think back to that decision, as easy as it is for me now in hindsight, a year later, to tell you that, yeah, that path was completely misaligned with who I am as a person. It wasn't an overnight decision to quit. I mean, I stayed each and every day for 6 months because when I think about it, the path I was on, I mean, not in not in a pretentious way, but it was ladled with wealth, status, prestige, right? All the makings to be conventionally successful in our society. And the reason why I pursued all of these qualities or attributes was to make up for my lack of self-worth, my unworthiness, my dependence on external validation. So, with all of that being tied into this path that I was on, the idea, the thought of leaving behind these core parts of who I am and all I know myself to be, along with venturing out into the uncertainty, the unknown, yeah, I was scared. I had no idea what to do with myself or my life. But over time, as the meaningless, unfulfilling work continued to eat away at my soul, confronting fear slowly became the more attractive option. In the months really leading up to February 27th, I had a lot of conversations with myself, a lot of back and forth, mental turmoil I had to go through, wrestling with the fear I had. But there was one thing, one exercise I did in particular on January 30th, 2022, that really helped me make this decision to lean into fear and to overcome all of those hesitations I had. And that's what I'm going to use to kind of frame the rest of this video. It's an exercise called fear setting, which I'll leave linked in the description if you're curious to check it out. But at the top of my note, which I'm not going to show you because my handwriting is atrocious, but I will recreate it. I wrote, what if I quit my job with nothing lined up to pursue content creation? I listed 3 fears and scored them on a scale from 1 to 10, with 10 being scared shitless. The first was having no income, living off of savings. That was a 4 out of 10. How my traditional career in quotes would look, not being able to get myself back on track. Again, 4 out of 10. And lastly, I fail and months of time and money don't yield tangible results. All this talk and not being able to make it happen, how it would affect my own confidence and belief. 6.5 out of 10. I mean, as any rational-minded person I was afraid of leaving a steady bi-weekly paycheck in the security and comfort that it provides. But beyond the surface, deep down, I was deeply afraid of letting myself down, because without confidence, without self-belief, I mean, who are you? How are you supposed to venture out into the world and navigate all the uncertainty that life can be without confidence and belief in yourself? So, yeah, I was definitely afraid of that. And no one wants to be that person who makes a bold claim, publicly especially, and fall short of it, right? To have to embarrassingly, like, tuck your tail between your legs and retreat back to where you came from. And for me at 22 to claim that YouTube content creation was the vehicle for my purpose in life, yeah, pretty bold statement. One that the downfall, falling short, would be absolutely catastrophic to my psyche. But when I think back, when I read through all of this, as you'd hope with a year of growth and increased self-awareness, I realized that for as concerned as I was for my confidence and self-belief, just being able to say and claim that this thing I'm doing is that important to me, that it's my purpose in life, that takes confidence and self-belief in immeasurable quantities. And leaning into fear, taking that leap of faith, has only strengthened them further. Strengthened them further. There are some other steps as well, but I'm going to skip over those for the sake of the video. But the next thing I want to talk about is a benefit cost analysis, which you're probably thinking that sounds weird, that sounds off, it should be cost benefit. But the way the exercise is laid out, you list out all of the benefits of an attempt or partial success first. So I hope you will indulge me here, because I was eager and I wrote quite a bit. First was temporary break from the rat race to fine tune if this, YouTube, is actually a vessel for my purpose in life, what I truly find fulfilling. Learn new skills and knowledge, pretty vague, but we'll take that. Force myself to grow and take risks to succeed. Cultivate a failure is not an option mindset. That is spicy. Develop my creative side, my true inner child and self. Stay true to myself, inspiring those around me, being a role model. Meet new people, have new experiences, greater IDGAF mentality, which for those of you who aren't familiar with the acronym, it is I don't give a vulnerability and authenticity, greater mental resilience, resolve, and confidence. Wow. When I read that back, it's pretty surreal to be able to say to you that a year later, I've experienced all of those benefits to some degree or another, which makes you think, right? It's a no-brainer to make those kind of decisions, especially when you only have, a few fears that are holding you back. But ultimately, it wasn't the benefits that pushed me to quit to make this decision, because after all, like, how could I have possibly predicted any of this? If I could predict the future, there's a lot of other things I would do. But in all honesty, it was the cost of inaction. And when I wrote this, right, the future cost of inaction, which is like emotionally, physically, financially, and so forth, 6 months, the costs that I wrote were drained, knowing I, with the awareness I have, chose to stay and forgo this risk when postponing it won't alleviate anything or create a real solution. Frustrated, reading my journal entries and seeing the acceptance of fear. And then you also do it for 1 and 3 year timelines. I wrote both similar to 6 months, which begs the answer: do it ASAP, as soon as possible. I also wrote not being the person I know myself to be, who I'd look up to. All of what I preach and try to embody would be hypocritical. Mentally burnt out, even more than I am now. And the crazy thing is, right, how could I have predicted these future costs more than the benefits, right? Well, it's quite easy. All I had to do was look at my coworkers, people a few years further along down the path I was on, to know exactly how I'd end up if I stayed on it. And the last point I wrote on the cost of inaction was I would be just like the rest of the people I work with, people I don't look up to, respect, nor would want to surround myself with. The cost of inaction, of doing nothing, was way scarier to me than the possibility of failure, of merely trying. All of the fears I had involved money to some degree, even the last fear, which isn't all that surprising, because after all, we grow up in a society where it's literally ingrained in us that more is better. And this is especially drilled into you when you grow up in an immigrant household where, your parents, they start off with less. Makes sense. And when you start working your first full-time job as an adult, it is cool to see the numbers in your different accounts or whatever go up, sort of like a video game. But after that fleeting few seconds of, oh, that's cool. I mean, this is privileged of me to be able to say, but they go back to what they are, just numbers on a screen. And I think that's where people have a hard time letting go of these lucrative career paths, and why they pursue them in the first place is because, as much as these numbers signify net worth, people tend to attach their self-worth to them as well. I mean, I did for the longest time, and yeah, it was, as I've mentioned, hard to detach myself from that, to try and redefine what it means to be successful, or that I am worthy without all of these titles and whatnot attached to my name. And what I've come to realize in the past year of leaving behind this path of making less is, ultimately, we're taught to exchange our time for money because it's this measurement, right? A clear exchange, a clear denomination of value. And if that's the case, if you don't have something that you want to do with your time that is more valuable than money, then you're more willing to give it up. And in my case, when I realized that doing this, YouTube, content creation, connecting with people, I realized that this is the most important thing in my life. What I want to spend every possible minute I have, within reason, don't want to burn out, doing. And you learn to, instead of exchanging time for money, exchange money for time. And that's exactly what I did. I mean, I took I think I did the math earlier, it was like a 35 to 40% pay cut to take my current day job on top of whatever earning potential or ceiling that I left behind on the path that I was headed down, to create more time. To create more time for this thing that I love, this beautiful thing that lights my soul up like nothing ever will. And when you find that, and just know, I mean, right, it takes longer for some to do so, but that's okay. There's no timeline to any of this. The timeline you're on is when you're meant to be on. But when you find that thing, that, man, it lights you up like that, create as much time, energy, and space for it as you can. Because there will be nothing that brings you as much joy, fulfillment, or excitement for the future that I have now, that I did not have at all when I was working in a job where I admittedly made more. There's not a day that goes by where I think about the money I could be making, the higher number I could have had in my accounts or whatever. Because in the years since, of quitting my job, of being able to have more time and space in my life to do this, what matters most to me in life, my life is so much fuller. And I wouldn't trade a single one of my normal or typical days that I have now of making less for one of the days from a year ago where I just very clearly was just feeling so about my life and my path forward. Except for maybe the day when I went into my shiny Midtown Manhattan corporate office building. I went to the 36th floor in a hoodie, sweatpants, and sneakers. First and last time I'll ever do that. I dropped off my laptop, my monitors, all my equipment, ghosted my toxic associate, and felt this subconscious weight just off my shoulders. I stepped out into freedom. Not just that, but you know me. I'm a guy who looks for meaning in even the faintest of moments. Because when I stepped out that door, I stepped out onto my new path in life.